Okay, so to change the look of this more like what I'm after, we really have three choices. So let me go over to this video where I'm experimenting and I'll show you this. So the natural way, or the default way, when you make something follow a path like this green rectangle is doing, is that it just kind of stays square and moves along the path. So one thing that you can do is click somewhere between the first and last keyframe, go over into the properties, and for these properties here we can change orient to path. And what that'll do is it'll make it so that it runs more like of a tangent to the path, which can add some naturalness to it. Now the other thing that you can do is you can, and I'll turn this off for a second, but you can do all of these if you want to. The other one would be what we already did on our video, and that would be to change the angle that it stops at. So you can see it just kind of takes that into consideration as it goes. If we also turned on orient to path, it'll kind of change it just slightly, but we've already made it really orient to the path just by how we changed it so much at the end. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can also rotate it as it goes. And so, and I'll leave these other ones on here because we've done rotate before. So there you go. Now you have a rotate, and it's kind of following the path the best that it can, and it's changing its ending position the way we put it. So after experimenting a little bit in here, what I found out worked the best for me, because it's already kind of arcing with the path just because of the fact that I changed its rotation, is if I go to here and I turn on rotate, but instead of going with the default, which is a full rotation, I'm going to set that to, which would seem counterintuitive, but I'm going to set it to 0. But because we've told it to rotate, it's just going to rotate while it makes its final thing, which turns out to be about 180-degree rotation. Okay, let's just extend this out so that the user gets a chance to see what happens before it repeats. So I'll go out to about right here, do a F5, that extends everything, and then if I do a command return, we'll see what the user sees. So obviously it looks like it's in slow motion right now. So let's go ahead and bring this is the key component here, we'll bring this back so it's just under a second. That's a little bit better. It's probably still slower than it would be in real life, but we get an idea what's happening. And let's move on to the next topic. In fact, let's just do this so that we can work with nice easy numbers. We'll put this at 15 and shift click, and we'll go back here to frame 40, and then actually no, let's not do that. Let's just get rid of everything after frame 40. So I'll click on frame 41 there, and on my last frame there, and then do a shift F5 and when I click away you can see everything went goodbye. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next topic, which is easing. And I want everything to disappear that I have right now. So I'm just going to slide along here, do a series of F7s to all of those. So now I am in blankness. I did promise you that I'd show you one more where we draw the motion path first. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll make an area for a brand new one here by clicking on the new layer. And I'll just call this K2. We'll make our next animation start here. So I'm going to click there, do a F7, come out with the pen tool, and this time I'm going to do kind of a wacky path here. And I'm just doing a series of clicks and drags to keep this thing pretty smooth. Okay, and then we'll come up to where the knives were originally on this layer, unlock it, select another one, and send it to a new layer with the modified timeline distribute to layers. Did a little layer renaming here. I changed the name from path to guide because guide's actually more technically correct. Name this one that we just spun off to as K2, and then we're going to come down to the guide layer, double click, tell it that it's a guide. Good, and then we'll go to this layer that we're actually going to animate, and I'm just going to do an F6 here because I want it to be sitting there the whole time, but I don't want it to actually animate until we get here. So I need to do an F6, and then we're going to take this, drag it down below, and you see how once we get the little guide or the little indicator showing us that it's indented right there, I let it go, and now you can see that we have the same thing that happened there. So this will now control it, and we'll go ahead and put it at the starting point here, and you should feel it snap into place. Then we'll go a little bit down the road here, and since we liked 15 seconds or 15 frames before, let's try about the same. So 20 to 35-ish, and I will do another F6, and then we'll move this. Accidentally grab Command Z, undo that because I accidentally grabbed the path. So what I'll do, or accidentally grab the guide, I'll lock the guide, move this over along here, snap it somewhere towards the end of my path, and then just kind of back it up about right there. And then I'll turn it slightly so that it looks like it finishes up in the target. And then we will put in our right click and create classic tween, and we'll see how that goes. Now that's probably going to be too fast for everything that it does there. Yeah, let's slow that one down a little bit. So come in here, hit F5, maybe even quite a few times here. In fact, what I should be doing is doing F5 for all of these. So I'll just do enough F5 swiping across here so that I get everything cleaned up to pointing out here. Okay, so now I have myself out to frame 70 before I have the blank keyframes, and if we preview this we can see we've got a weird animation going on, especially with that second one. And you might notice now that you're able to do these more sophisticated animations that okay, that's really nice, but it doesn't quite move like the things do in real life. A good example is an automobile. So let's make an automobile and see if we can't get it to move a little bit more like it does in real life. So I'm going to go on here. Now there's two ways that you can work. When you're starting a brand new animation and you know you don't need the ones before it, you could actually now animate on the same layer. So I have this animation here. I could do the car animation here. That's good in that it saves layers, but it's bad in that the naming kind of goes to heck. So what you could do at this point is, since all of this was for the previous animation, is you could go down to here and select new folder, and you could name this guide, and then select all the layers that were inside a guide, and maybe you want to unlock them individually because you can lock the whole entire folder. So we'll just take that, do a slight drag up. You can see it indents almost like those did, but the beauty here is that I can now just toggle this caret here, lock them. Everything is still here. The animation still works, but it's nice and tucked up inside of this guide. And probably wouldn't be a bad idea just to open this up just till we get a new layer going here. And we'll call this layer car. We will put a blank keyframe right there at 70. And we're going to be editing this in a little bit to put some transitions between the different things that we're doing. But let's just kind of get started first, and then we'll come back and clean it up. So right here at frame 70 for the car, I am going to put in my first blank keyframe for the car. Now I'm going to close up this, and looks kind of neat and clean now. Okay, so I just created a styling car van out of geometric shapes, saved it as a symbol, just a graphic symbol. It's now in our library with the two other shapes that we made. I created a simple animation of this vehicle moving from one side of the stage to the other. And so what it's lacking is that sense of realism where a car doesn't instantly start driving at a speed. So if you want to get up to 55 miles an hour, you don't put your foot on the gas and you're going 55 miles an hour instantly, no matter how high performance of a vehicle you have. So let's do this to make that point really clear. What I'm first going to do is I'm going to move this ahead 1 second. So I'm going to take it from frame 70 to 90. Then I'm going to make a copy of this first frame back over here. So what I'm going to do is click on this frame to wake it up, click again, hold down the Option key and drag it back to frame 70-ish. And then I don't need that tween in there, so I'll Control click and remove the tween. So now what's happening is this car just sits here for 1 second and then it takes off. So the property that we want to change is known as easing, and the way we do that is we just put our cursor somewhere between the first and the last keyframe, go into the properties panel, and then ease is what we're going to change. So, and if we have a minimum and a maximum value, or I should say, well, so we can go up to 100 for ease out, and we can go down to -100 to ease in. We can also, if we want to, make a custom easing graph, but let's just start out with the basics. So let's try ease in. So I'm going to go with that -100 value there, and then let's test this. And we'll go ahead and test it right on screen here. And that's a little bit more of what you expect to see when you see a vehicle taking off. Now, if that's too much for you, like if you want a car that really accelerates fast, then you would just back off on the easing. So instead of -100, maybe you do -50-ish, and then check it out again and see if it's what you want. And I'm going to go ahead, and I would probably suggest that you do too, and maximize both the eases that we're going to do. So I'll leave this at -100, and then to make it even more clear what's going on for when you come back to this, because you want the idea that it's starting there and that it's just driving away. So let's make it in this last frame actually drive right off the stage. All right, so let's go ahead and extend this for a second. Actually, let's go 2 seconds. So to 20 to 30 to 50. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the grade sheet, and I'm going to have items for you to copy and paste. So we just want to kind of announce that this is easing in so that when you use it as a reference in the future, you'll have that. So I'm just going to take the type tool, Command V, and paste, and we'll do similar to what we did in the last video. We'll just make all this Helvetica, keep it at black, but let's crank up the size a little bit here, which I need to sweep across it to do. And yeah, I think 50 is good, and we'll just kind of put that in a prominent place, maybe up at the top left. And we should also distribute that to a layer, because we don't want it on the same layer as the car, which has animation. And we'll just use this as a layer that we'll probably keep outside of any folders, and we'll just call it text. And that did happen to show up at the very first frame, so I'll just grab it, drag it to where we want it to show up, which should be